Hi everyone, today we're going to be learning about the application of factoring in the perfect squares. So let's go ahead and move on. The warm-up of the day. So just a friendly reminder that there are different ways to do the warm-up, okay? We can distribute each term and multiply that way. There's the FOIL method and the Punnett square method. So with the FOIL, which a lot of you were interested in, F stands for first term. You multiply the first terms in each parentheses, okay? And then the next thing would be the O, which is the outer terms, to multiply those two. Next would be I, and that would be your inner terms. And then next it'll be L, which are your last terms, to multiply those. So this helps us multiply what we need to. In the case that you don't want to use that, sorry. Okay, in the case that you don't want to use that, you could just distribute. So, hold on. Let me just erase this all. Erase. Then what we could do is simply just multiply by distribution. So 3x times x is 3x squared. And then we would do the next term. We would do the same term, distribute it to the other term. 3x times 6 is 18x. And since it was a positive, put plus. Okay, the next thing would be to multiply negative 1 times x, negative 1x. And then finally, it would be negative 1 times 6, negative 6. And then we would just combine like terms. So definitely the x's. I'm going to carry down my 3x squared, carry down my constant, and then I get 17x. Okay, looks good. So it should have been C. Very nice. All right, let's move on to the next one. Okay, today we're going to be talking about the differences of squares. We're also going to be talking about substitution. So let's go ahead and move on. All right, so this is an occasion where we have a difference of squares, and this is why. The 49 is a perfect square. Why? Because think of a square and think of how a square with the area of 49 has all sides equal to 7, because 7 times 7 is 49. Okay, so identifying the binomial as a difference of squares is by first noticing that we have that square number. And also because unlike the trinomials we have seen, this is missing a middle term. So because it's missing a middle term, we have to have an addition and a subtraction in our factored binomial, okay? So there was no coefficient in front of x. There was nothing. So I didn't have to fill this box in. But there is that constant, negative 49. And I know the square factors of it. I know that 7 times 7 is 49. But here's the problem. If my constant is negative, then one of the two numbers have to be negative. They both cannot be, because a negative times a negative is a positive. And you can always use your calculator just to double check. So if you want to check negative 7 times negative 7, just type it in, which I'm doing right now. Typing this in. just to double check. And as you notice, it gives me a positive. So I know that one of my values have to be -7. The other one has to be positive to get, sorry, there it is, that -49. So then I'm just going to place a negative there. Substitute into the difference of squares formula. So this formula is basically the setup of how we're going to factor this out. So a plus b is basically x, right? X plus my first factor of 7, and then x minus my other factor. And the reason why I'm not saying +7, -7 anymore is because the positives and the negatives serve as addition and subtraction. They're both the same thing, okay? So now we're going to check our answers. So I'm going to take what I just made, what I've just generated, and basically multiply across. So x squared minus 7x plus 7x minus 49. As you can see, these two cancel. They become 0, and thus giving me the original binomial. See? Awesome. So let's continue. All right, same concept here. Got a -25. 5 times -5. X plus 5. X minus 5. Then I can always check it to see if it gives it to me, and so on and so forth. X squared minus 5x, 5x minus 25. And it does, it gives it to me. These cancel, become 0, and it gives me the original x squared minus 25. Alrighty, let's move on. Now this is different. There's a special trick to this one, so pay close attention to this one. All right, let me just check how much time I have. 10 minutes. Okay, so here's a special trick. When you have a coefficient, you cannot do that anymore. You can't do what I just showed you, okay? Even though you see that there's a difference, because there is no middle term, there's a different way of attacking this problem. So what I like to do is take my coefficient here, my constant here, and what I like to do is multiply it. So -121 times 9. And then this is where my calculator comes into hand. So I'm going to go ahead and do -121 times 9, and it gives me -1089. Okay, now here's the second step. The second step is to find the square root of this number. So here's the first step. First step is to multiply your coefficient and your constant. The second step is to find the square root of it. So I'm going to type that into my calculator, and this is how. You see this little guy right here? Oops. Right there? With the little X and the squares next to the 9, I'm going to press that. When I press it, it gives me a list of tools, and I've already selected the square root. You can use your arrow keys to get to it. And I'm going to just compute that into my calculator. I'm going to put negative 1089. In fact, it says there is not a real calculation. So I'm going to do it again with a positive 1089, keeping in mind that it was a negative number, okay? Square, do it again. 1089, enter, and I get 33. And the reason why I'm doing this is because it's like pretty much a shortcut to writing out my my factored form. So here we go, x. So then I change this to a positive because you can't find the square root of a negative. I got 33 times 33, which gives me 1089. These are the factors. Okay. Now I'm going to set this up with the 33s. So then I'm going to put plus 33, but then the other one's going to be negative, x minus 33. To get that difference of squares, to get the middle term to erase, okay? But don't be fooled by this. This is step 3. We're not finished. This will not work if you don't finish this off correctly. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my coefficient, the 9, and I'm going to divide by 9 to my terms. Okay? So 33 divided by 9. I'm going to simplify. Okay? So simplify that. You can simplify in your calculator. Did you know that? So 33 divided by 9. It simplifies for you. 11 thirds. Put x plus 11 thirds x minus 11 thirds. And then instead of, so step 4, you simplify. Step 5, you're going to move these denominators into the new coefficients of your factored form. So then they're going to move up. So we call this the bottoms up method. So it's 3x plus 11, 3x minus 11. So make sure that you memorize this because this is a great tool. Awesome. It'll help you for Algebra 2 also. There you go, guys. That was a lesson of the day.